Here we go. All right, welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening for the Pennsylvania Aquatic Invasive Species Field Guide Application Training Webinar. Thank you for joining. We're excited to have everyone and talk about this really cool tool and resource and get you familiar with it. So this is interactive. So if you don't have a cell phone with you, you might want to go ahead and grab that. I'd love for you to have the opportunity to practice using the tool. And if you have questions, please feel free to add them into the chat box. There'll be some opportunities for some questions during the presentation, but at the end, there'll be a Q&A. All right. All right, so this is our agenda. I'm going to start out by giving a background about the app, kind of how it came to be and what the purpose of the application is. Then we will go through together how to download, and I'm hoping that we don't bog the system down if there's too many of us downloading at one time, but we will try it and see how it goes. And then we'll have some time to really get into the app, explore it, look at its features, see how it's used. We're actually going to do some practice with reporting. And then we'll kind of complete the cycle by figuring out, once we have a report come in, what happens afterward, and what does that process look like when a report of a potential new invasive species comes in. And then we'll have our Q&A. But first, before jumping in too far, I know that there's several people registered throughout the state of Pennsylvania, but also beyond the state of Pennsylvania. So I wanted to give a quick overview of what Pennsylvania Sea Grant is, if you're not familiar with us. So we are a national program. So all throughout the country, every state that has any type of shoreline or Great Lakes coastline does have a Sea Grant program associated with it. And a university. So we're a part of Penn State University, and we're under the NOAA umbrella, so the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So our main mission is to promote the sustainability of Pennsylvania's ecological and economic coastal and watershed resources. And we do that in three ways. So we kind of consider our program to have like a three-legged stool. The first one being research. We participate in research projects as well as fund research throughout Pennsylvania. We do educational programming with K through 12 audiences and teachers, and we also do a number of different outreach projects. I'm Sarah Stallman. I realized I didn't introduce myself. I'm the extension leader, so I'm actually in charge of all of the statewide outreach and extension programming that we do here at Pennsylvania Sea Grant. And we do a number of other focus areas. This presentation is going to focus on aquatic invasive species, which is an area that we work very heavily in, but we do a lot of other work as well. So I'm going to go ahead and dive in with some of the background. This might be a resource that you're already familiar with. This is the Pennsylvania's Field Guide to Aquatic Invasive Species. This was a resource that we developed back in 2010, and so it's gone through a couple updates and iterations. The most updated version was in 2022. And really the purpose of this resource was to provide field biologists, conservation officers, really anybody that's working in the field out in Pennsylvania with an identification resource to help them if they find something and they're not sure what it is, or they're looking to identify invasive species. So we created this to be durable, kind of easy to carry. It's small on the smaller side. There's over 65 different species within the field guide. Some are species you're going to find already in Pennsylvania, and others are ones that we're kind of on the lookout for. There are still copies of this available. However, we actually still have 2015 copies. We're out of the 2022 version. So this giant QR code here, if you're interested in a copy, you can scan that QR code, and it will bring you to our website where you can request a copy, or you can request to be on the wait list for the 2022 version. So if you're interested in the guide and you're okay with the 2015 version, we do still have a limited number of those available, but you can also be put on our wait list as well. And this has been a really popular resource. We've given out thousands of copies all throughout the country, beyond. We've given out copies to Canada, the Western United States. So it's been more popular than just Pennsylvania. and it has a lot of good things about it, but there's also a few downsides. One is that it can be very expensive to print field guides like this, especially in big batches. And the second being that they go fairly quickly out of date. So you can print a resource, and then within a week, there's a new occurrence or a sighting of something, and your resource has gone out of date. So that's kind of where the app comes in. And I did want to just show you kind of what it looks like on the inside so you can get a feel of, what we're looking at with this resource. So, this is an example with purple loosestrife, which is an invasive plant that is found in Pennsylvania. So it gives kind of this species at a glance overview, which is where you're going to kind of find some fun facts or general invasive species or general information about the invasive species. And then there's identification tips. So for this plant, it's split up into things like leaves and flowers and fruits and stems and roots. And then there's also a section for similar species. So for a lot of these species, there might be lookalikes. So this will tell you how to identify and tell them apart. What are some feature characteristics that you want to look for? So for example, this purple loosestrife species might be confused with blue vervain. And so it gives you kind of those tips for how you can tell them apart. It'll also tell you what habitat you might find it in, how it's spread, what the distribution is, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying a little bit ago about the resource quickly going out of date. So this is county level data. So, if you have a county occurrence that happens soon after the resource going out to print, it's out of date. And then also environmental impacts is included in there as well. So to help kind of overcome that barrier with the field guide and provide more accessibility, we created the Aquatic Invasive Species Field Guide app, which is, I believe, what you're here for to learn about tonight. And so essentially what this is all of that information that I just shared with you from the field guide, from the physical copy of the field guide, has been digitized to fit within this application. So again, it's easily accessible. Most people are carrying smartphones around with them. So, you don't have to remember if you're going out to grab a field guide. A lot of times the reports that we get or the people that find things, it's not their intention to go out looking for things either. So this provides kind of a right in your pocket opportunity to, be on the lookout for invasive species. Again, it can be updated in real time. It also includes geolocation, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we do the reporting section. But it can track where you are so that if you do see something, you can make a note of that and include the location. It works without Wi-Fi. So if you're out in the field and you're in a remote location and you don't have a connection to Wi-Fi, the app will still function. But you can kind of go, if you're going to submit a report, and do as you would normally do. And then as soon as you connect to the Wi-Fi source, it will allow you to send the report. So it'll kind of hang on to that data and that information until you're connected directly to the Wi-Fi. And then again, you can report species right from here. So that's kind of one of our key exciting features that's been very useful so far, is the fact that you can report them. So here's the part where we scan and see if we can download the apps if you don't already have it on your phone. We do have the Apple QR code here, as well as the Android QR code. If you're not comfortable with QR codes, on the next couple slides, I will show you how you can search within the stores to get the app. But I want to leave this on here just for a few seconds so that people can screen capture that if they're using the QR code. You can also take a picture of this and save it for later. Again, I'm not sure if everybody's trying to download the app at the exact same time, if it'll get bogged down. So feel free to snap a picture of that as well. Just leave that up there just for a few more seconds so that everyone can get it. This is another way that you can search for the app. So if you have an Apple phone, you can go into the Apple Store and you can type in PAAIS Field Guide into the search bar. And then you're going to see this little icon with PAAIS Field Guide, and you can download it directly from there. Same thing for the Google Play Store. So if you have an Android phone and you go into Google Play, you can type in, again, PAAIS Field Guide, and you should see this screen pop up so that you can go ahead and download and install that directly onto your phone. So I'm not seeing anybody yell at me in the chat or anything like that. So hopefully everyone's had an opportunity to download that and nobody's having any issues. All right. So I'm going to go through the app. If you were not able to download it for some reason, do not worry. I'm going to do some demos here. So you'll be able to kind of follow along if you want to. Otherwise, you can kind of just watch the demo and see how it works. I'm going to start that up. So you load up the app. And this is what it looks like. So you can kind of see that there's a whole different list of species. They're not really filtered or anything by taxa, but you can filter them. So you can filter them by county. So because I'm in Erie County, that's what I'm going to use to filter as an example, but you can use any county that you're interested in seeing what species are available there. You can also filter by taxa. So just for an example, I'm going to filter out the fish. So these are all the fish that are in Erie County, and I'm going to choose the round goby to show you what the species profiles look like. So at the top, we've got pictures of what the fish looks like. And then there is a little section right underneath, which is kind of that species at a glance section that I was talking about. And then it goes into your identification. You click on similar species, and that opens up habitat, spread, distribution. So there's the same map that you saw in the field guide that shows you that this species is only present in Pennsylvania in Erie County. And then there's also environmental impact. And I am just going to check. Oh, there's a comment that the chat is disabled. So if you can use the question and answer, that will work just fine. So I apologize for that. All right, so that's what the species profile section looks like. Again, it's very similar. It's actually identical to the same information that's in the field guide. So the next section is going to be what's called articles. So I'm just going to use my laser pointer. Hopefully you guys can see that. So down here at the bottom, this is where the species profiles button was. If you touch the articles button, it should bring you to a screen that looks something like this. And there's a number of articles in here, and what this really is supplementary information for the field guide. So if you were to have the physical copy and you opened that up, there would be an initial introduction to the field guide, you know, what it is, how you use it, why it's important. So all of that information's here. Some of this information is scattered throughout the field guide. So before you get into the invertebrate section, you might see the mussel anatomy page. Before you get into the plants, you might see some of these plant parts and stem sections. So everything that is in the field guide that's kind of scattered throughout is concentrated within the articles. So for example, you know, if you're reading a profile and it tells you to look for leaves that are in the shape of a rosette and you have no idea what that means, you can go into the leaf shape and arrangement article, and it will show you how to identify what some of those words mean that you might not know, because I know I didn't know what all of these were when looking at this. So this is a reference to help you figure that out. Another example, I'm not going to go through all of them, but just kind of give some examples. So if you're not familiar with fish anatomy and you see something that, you know, tells you to look for a certain number of rays on the dorsal fin and you're not sure what that is, this is the fish anatomy. So it gives you kind of the labels and what to look for on a fish. Different root types, if you're not familiar with that. Fin shape, so, you know, if it tells you to look for a fish that has a truncated tail, you can see a visual of what that looks like within the fish fin shapes. It'll also go into various, so there's an algae section, and it'll go into the different types of algae. So there should be one of these articles for like blue-green algae, green algae, diatoms. This is the example, and it'll give you a description and some detailed information on those different types of algae. And then there's also some guidance included within the articles. So if for some reason you're out in the field and you find something and say you report it and you are told to collect a specimen, here's some guidance for how to do that in Pennsylvania. And again, it says right here at the top, only collect a specimen if it's requested by the agency with authority over the AIS in question. So this is something that you shouldn't just do right away, but if you're in contact and you know whoever's leading the response effort says, hey, I'm not able to get out there, are you able to go back to the site where you found it and collect a specimen for us? This is when this would be very useful. And then we're also very concerned, aware, and we spend a lot of time working on prevention. So there's a couple different prevention articles in there. This one is specific to biologists and those working in Pennsylvania's waterways. So as you're coming across these things, making sure that you're not accidentally spreading and moving them around. So here's some of the, you know, prevention tips for working in our waterways. So those are just a few of the different articles, and feel free to kind of look through those and learn those on your own. All right, so as you go back down to the bottom, the little report icon there is highlighted. So this is probably what we see, you know, as one of the coolest features of the guide or the field guide app, which I think is the best because we're starting to see so many more people use this to report invasive species in Pennsylvania. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on this section here. So this is just a screenshot, so it's kind of cut off. I will show you a demo similar to what I did with the species profiles in just a second. But kind of the key things to think about here are you're going to put in, it's cut off, but there's a section there for your name, your email address, your phone number. You can select a county that you're in. There is an option for unknown for if some reason you don't know where you are, you can choose unknown for the county. You can select the species that you think it is. If you're not sure, you can select, you know, unknown. You choose your severity, and then you can type in your details. So again, we're going to go ahead and do a demo for that. Before that, though, I'm going to just jump back just for a second. So if you look down here at the bottom, there is a button for you to add photographs. So this is another really cool feature that you can take pictures directly from the app and then upload them. And those reports we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit, but those reports will go to myself and the Aquatic Invasive Species Coordinator for the state. And so we like to just provide a little bit of guidance on taking photographs because it's amazing. Some of the photographs that we get, they're very difficult to tell. It's very difficult in general to tell and identify or verify a species from a photograph. So kind of following these tips really helps us out to be able to see things in the best possible way so that we can try to identify from a photo. So you might want to make sure that you're taking very clear photographs. They're close up. We've gotten a few photographs asking what something was, and it's like taken from someone's window off a balcony, like of a lake, and we're like, we can't even see what that is. So make sure you're kind of doing that close up if you can, and also from different angles. Things look different from different ways, so taking a few pictures is always helpful. It's also helpful to include a reference object to establish a scale. So it's hard to tell from a picture how large something is. So you can kind of see in this example right here, there is a coin in here showing us how big these whorls are on this plant. So that's very helpful to be able to give us a reference of scale. It's also helpful to have photos of the immediate environment where the sighting occurred, if possible. There's some things that can be found in certain habitats and that can help clue into what the species is. And then also making sure that you're providing a good contrast in your background. You'd be surprised also how many photos we get of plants that are up against grass or something else that's green. So it's very difficult to see. So if you have a piece of paper or something white, and you can see the contrast in this photo, it makes it much easier to be able to see the leaves and the plant itself. And then also if you see something that looks distinguishing, maybe there's a spot. If it's a fish, maybe there's a spot on it, or maybe there's something unique about it, making sure that you're taking photos of any of the distinguishing characteristics of that species to submit as well. All right, so here's the part where we practice a little bit. So we're going to kind of go through a pretend scenario here of a plant. So you can just pretend that you're visiting your local favorite local fishing spot. And as you approach, you see a strange plant floating on the surface of the water that you haven't noticed at this location before. So you decide to take a few pictures. And I am going to leave this on the screen just for a second. If you have your phone, go ahead and feel free to snap a couple pictures. That way you can use them to practice when we actually submit the practice report. I guess you can use whatever picture you want as long as it's not offensive, but here's an opportunity to take a picture of the plant that we're gonna practice reporting. All right, I'm assuming you've taken your pictures. I see that somebody's raised their hand. I'm going to allow you to talk, Gary, in case you have a question. Gary, go ahead.
If you showed me raising my hand, it was because I have a touch screen laptop or desktop, and I was putting a pen up against the screen for reference, and I bumped it with my finger. So ignore that.
Okay, no
Please.
worries. We will carry on. Thank you.
All right.
All right. All right. So this is going to be just a demo. You don't have to do your reporting right now. If you're following along with the app, this will show you what to do first, and then you'll have an opportunity to go ahead and do that. So again, you go ahead and you open the app. So again, because I'm in Erie, I am going to do this by county, and I am going to put in Erie County. And because I know it's a plant species, I'm also going to filter by looking at aquatic plants. And first, I'm just going to kind of take a look and see if anything looks similar to the picture that I took, just out of curiosity to see if it's already here in Erie County, and I don't see it. So I am removing the Erie County filter, and now I'm looking at all the plants and just kind of scrolling down to see if anything looks familiar. And oh, look, I see water chestnut. That does look similar. So I'm going to click on that and just take a look at some of the pictures and see, oh, there's the same picture. So this is looking like what we found might be water chestnut. So because of that, I'm going to go back down just anyways to the distribution just to double check, make sure this is not a species that was found in Erie County before, and it is not. So I'm going to look up in the upper right corner there and click the report button. So here's where I'm going to put in my name, and I'm going to add in, just for the sake of knowing which are tests and which are real, type in test exercise, enter an email, phone number. I'm going to select Erie County. So this already shows up with water chestnut here because I reported directly from the species page. If I had gone down here to the report button, this would not be filled out. Then I choose my severity, which is, we'll just say it's a few plants. I'm making this up. So we're saying that the body of water in Erie County is Presque Isle Bay. Putting in some infestation details. Apologies for all the typos. It's not as easy to do. So we'll just say that there was a few plants found floating near the boat launch. And we're going to give a more specific location of the lagoons system and the boat launch there. So now we can click on to adding some photos. I'm going to choose for my library. I'm going to choose those two photos. And here's where it gives you an opportunity to include your location within the app. So there's a toggle right there. If you toggle that on and you have your geolocation services turned on, then that will automatically capture your GPS coordinates that will be attached to the report. Then you can go ahead and hit that purple send button, and that report will go through. All right. So now it's your turn. So I'm going to give you guys just a few minutes. If you've downloaded the app and you have it up and running, which I hope that you do, please take a second to use the smartphone to report water chestnut in a water body of your choice. It doesn't have to be Erie County. You can kind of put in whatever details that you want to put in, and just make sure that you include your name and test exercise as I have shown here, so that we know that it's just a test. And I'm gonna, while you're doing that, just take a look into the Q&A and see if I am missing anything. Somebody asked, sorry if I missed this, do we only report something if it hasn't already been reported in that specific county? That's a really good question. The answer to that is no. So if you see something that you feel is in a new location or you haven't seen it there before, it is perfectly okay to go ahead and report it. If you see something, you know, that has been around for a while, you know, and it's like, I'll give an example of this in a little bit where, you know, we know it's been there for a while, you're not going to report it. But I would say if you see something suspicious and you're not sure, just report it. And again, I'll go through that a little bit more as we look at what happens after you submit a report to answer some of that question too. Yeah, so another question that came through while you guys are practicing this is we are only allowed 3 photos, no more. The app is set up for 3 photos. So at this time, that's all it can handle. If for some reason, you know, we need more photos, we can reach out and ask for those. So you can take more photos and have them on hand and follow up with an email with the photos if that's helpful too. All right, I am not seeing any more. Oh, wait, one came in. Oh, thank you. This is a beautiful and user-friendly app. I appreciate that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead for the sake of time and move forward. So hopefully nobody had any trouble with putting in the reports. So let's go ahead and move forward to what happens after a report is submitted. So the app is connected to an online database, and this is what it looks like. This is the dashboard here. And all of the updating that we do to the app is from here. So we can add in species by clicking here. We can add in new counties by clicking here. But this is where all of our reports go. So if you click on this tab, this is where we go into this dashboard. So these are actually all real reports that have come in. We also get an email to say that a report has been submitted. So this is diving into one of the reports just a little bit more. This is just a blip. I couldn't copy over the entire report, but just so that you can see. And actually, I'm going to hit pause just for a quick second. I'm sorry, my computer was not plugged in properly. So give me just one quick second. Okay, sorry about that. I did not want to shut off on you guys. So here we go again. This is a report of Brazilian Eladia, and this shows the county, the body of water, the location services. So when this person submitted the report, the geolocation services were turned on, and the severity was listed as many. And this is a picture that came along. There was a couple pictures that were included with the report. This is what it looked like. So I mentioned that the reports get an email that goes out with them to let us know that something has been added from the Field Guide app. So this is Sean Hartzell. So he is the invasive species coordinator for Pennsylvania. He works for the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission. And in most circumstances, not all, but a lot of the aquatic invasive species fall under the jurisdiction of the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission. So he's our first point of contact. And he's the one to determine whether, you know, it's Fish and Boat that takes the lead or whether it's another agency or organization that takes the lead, but he's always going to be that initial contact. So once he receives the report, he starts what we call the rapid response process, which I'm going to go through with you so that you have a better understanding of what that looks like in Pennsylvania. And it all kind of starts here. So we have what's called the Rapid Response Plan and Procedures in Pennsylvania. This is a document that has been developed tested, updated many, many times starting back in 2009. So there's been a lot of work put into this document so that we have a very structured and coordinated approach when new invasive species are found in Pennsylvania. There is a QR code there. If you're interested in diving into the rapid response plan, you can access it from the QR code. But this essentially functions as a decision support framework. So it's going to kind of provide this step-by-step set of actions that people can follow to make sure that all the right people are at the table, all the right resources are being considered, and it provides those resources for things like decision making. So again, it's a checklist of response actions. It's literally, quite literally, a checklist, a resource for decision making. There's some tools that help you to lay out possible response options when new things are found, and then narrow down what action or set of actions that are going to be best to make for that infestation, what partners and experts should be contacted or referenced when going through the rapid response process. And also a resource for identifying things like funding opportunities. You've got to be able to have the funding to take action, and also various regulations. Do you need a permit to take action? All of that information is available in the rapid response plan. And it's also a place to learn from others. So I just highlighted the case study section of the rapid response plan with an actual water chestnut infestation. This is a rapid response that was led by the Mercer County Conservation District on Pine Run impoundment in Mercer County, which is infested with water chestnut. And so it kind of goes through, how much did it cost them? What was their process? What are some of the lessons learned that others that are responding to a similar species could maybe, learn from? It also has contact information. And we recently, found that these are being used. There was another infestation of water chestnut. I believe it might have been in Jefferson County. Don't quote me on that. But they actually ended up reaching out to the main contact, Nick Travelli, in this case study to get advice and information that helped them then to respond to their infestation. So after the report comes in, kind of the first question that's asked by Sean is the report a high priority? And what I mean by that is, is this a report that we're going to take action on or not? And I kind of already addressed this a little bit earlier when asking answering one of the questions. But, a situation where it might not be priority is something like what you're looking at here is Phragmites. So in Erie County and in my area of Presque Isle Bay, there's Phragmites everywhere. We've been treating it for years and years. So it's okay if somebody reports it because they might not know. But if that report was to come in, Sean would look at that and say, okay, yep, we know that's there. We're doing something about it. So he would answer. He answers all of the reports that come in and says, thank you for reporting this. We are aware that it's here. We're taking action, but thank you for your report. Or he might go the other way. So if we get a report of something that is considered priority because it's never been found here before, or it's in a location but it's expanding, or it's behaving differently, he might then say, yes, okay, this is going to be a high priority report and we're going to go ahead and take action on it. So we then have to verify the identity so that what is in the report is actually what is out there in the environment where it's being reported. And so again, this is all information from the app. So this can help you if you open up like the water chestnut species profile. It can help with the identification process. So here we have obviously water chestnut, since that's our case study species here, thing that has floating leaves. So it has this kind of rosette of floating leaves, but it also has these submersed leaves that are underneath the water. They're a little bit more feathery. The leaves are fan shaped. They have these bladders on the stem that help that rosette stay afloat. Then they also have these nut-like structures, which during certain times of the year you might see out there with the plant. These are very, very sharp. These spines can actually penetrate shoe leather, so it's not something that you want to step on, even with a sneaker on. And then it has this really long stem that can anchor down into the sediment at depths of up to 16 feet. So after you verify the identity of your species, you then have to do some background research. And again, this is all content from the app and the field guide. Things like understanding that each of these plants can produce up to 15 nuts per season. So it has this higher reproductive capacity. And not just that, but the nuts can actually remain viable in sediments for up to 12 years. So, these can kind of fall into the sediment. And even if you're pulling the plant out or think that you've got it, if you're not getting all of those nutlets out, then a whole new population can start. And water chestnuts also kind of a double whammy because they can also spread vegetatively. So you can kind of tear off a piece of plant and it can start an entire new plant. So this is a very difficult one. But the impacts of this is that they can form these dense floating mats that often limit light and oxygen availability. They can impede recreational activities. I'll show a picture of that in just a minute. And they also provide poor nutrition for wildlife. So just kind of understanding the biology of the plant and the impacts of the plant that you're dealing with help with decision-making and determining what actions you're going to take and how. Next step is actually doing a site assessment and really trying to understand what the geographic extent of the infestation is. What's the actual abundance? So we're looking at a pretty heavy infestation of water chestnut. I believe this is Lake Towhee. I think this is in Bucks County. Looking for evidence of reproduction. So if you're looking at a plant and you're seeing, seeds or you're seeing reproductive structures, understanding that that's established enough to be reproducing in that location, knowing what the usage of the water body is. So this, I believe, is used as a Cub Scout or a Boy Scout lake. And so there's a lot of impairment there because it's very, very difficult to put a canoe or a kayak through those dense mats of water chestnut. But also understanding that if there's boater traffic or there's some kind of recreational activity that takes place there, that's an opportunity for further spread. You can also use this site assessment as a way to speculate what the origin of the introduction is. So for some species, it's probably not as evident as others. Like, if we find a goldfish in Presque Isle Bay, we can most likely assume that that species was released as an aquarium release. But it's not always easy to do that. And then also taking note in your site assessment of, if there's other species that are there. Sometimes they might be other invasive species, other time, needing to know what kinds of threatened and endangered species are present there can impact what kind of a response action that you take. And then this is the part where you brainstorm response options and determine a plan of action. So this is where we actually kind of come full circle with the report that comes in and then the action being taken. So what this kind of looks like is the lead, whoever's the lead on the infestation, bringing together partners to sit down and look at things like, what resources are available, what resources are needed, what assets and capacity can partners provide to any response that's taking place and who's going to do what, making sure that those are assigned. So this is a process that I've seen many times working really well in Pennsylvania, actually, which is great. So this is just one that I just pulled a few examples from. And it was categorized into things like immediate actions. So in this case, an immediate action was to do a hand pulling event. So this person identified the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, Sea Grant, and volunteers to go out and do an immediate hand removal of the leading edges of the population. And then there's things like ongoing actions, like things like research, doing systematic reviews to compare different management strategies by looking at case studies like what I showed you before, and conducting on-site fieldwork. And then things like education. So this is something that Sea Grant might do, or working with the Pennsylvania Invasive Species Council to share these project details, to raise awareness and provide public outreach and work there on prevention. So, in some cases, eradication might be the main goal, and you're going to see more actions that focus on eradication, because that's a lot of times, what we want to see happen, but it doesn't mean it's always feasible for that to happen. So rapid responses can look very different depending what the species is, what the situation is, and what the actions end up being and the goals. So this is why it's really important to have resources like the app and the field guide for early detection. So essentially what this is showing here on this axis is the area occupied by invasive species here, time here, and per capita biodiversity impact. So essentially the cost here. So we're essentially looking here at this kind of early detection area. Prevention is always best, and Pennsylvania Sea Grant does a lot of work on prevention. We have a number of different, resources that help, focus on things like clean, drain, dry, and I could do a whole presentation on that. But this is when something does end up, kind of passing through that threshold. Here's where we get into this early detection. The sooner you can find something, the more chance that you have of being able to act and control before you end up spending a lot of time and money and resources and it gets beyond the point of eradication. So we're really focused here where the cost is relatively low. So if you're looking at this axis, the cost is relatively low and your area occupied is more like a few couple populations with localized invasions where you might be able to take some action. And then that leads us into our rapid response. So it's really, really important to be on the lookout. And again, it's kind of that motto of if you see something, say something, because that allows us to move quickly, well, relatively speaking, quickly, and learning about these things so that we can take action. Checking my time, I want to make sure there's enough time for questions and discussion. So kind of going back to the app itself, the last two little icons at the bottom, we have our glossary. So this is if you're looking through a species profile and you see terminology that you're just not familiar with, you can go ahead over to the glossary. It's all alphabetized. And then when you click on one of these, it'll show you the definition. So, if you're not familiar with what an adipose fin is, it's a small rayless fleshy dorsal fin present in certain fishes. So you can go ahead and look through that if you're interested in kind of learning more about the terminology. And then the very last info page is credits and links. So essentially, this is just showing that the app was designed by Pennsylvania Sea Grant. We used funding. It was made possible by the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, support from Penn State, and also the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, it'll show that Skyward App is the company that developed the app. And these are also links. So if you want to get to Pennsylvania Sea Grant's website, you can click directly on the Sea Grant logo and it'll take you to our website. Which, by the way, is the next slide, is just showing that we do have a number of other resources available about aquatic invasive species and more, a lot more. So feel free to check that out. This is the site address up here, seagrant.psu.edu. We are regularly working on bringing in more resources. We have a number of different fact sheets that you can access on different invasive species, all of our guides and training opportunities. Here you can see the app. And we also have a YouTube channel with some video series where you can learn more about invasive species. And this video will probably go on there as well. So do access that information and see what we have that might be helpful to you in your work. This is for me. It's very helpful for me to know how the webinars and the trainings are received by our users. So please scan this QR code. It will take you to a Google form with just a few quick questions about this training. So I'd appreciate that. I'm going to leave that up just for a second so that you're able to bring that up on your screen. You don't have to, do it just this second. If you scan the QR code, it'll bring it up and you can do it after we leave the webinar. But I'd really, really appreciate that. I'll leave that up there just for a few more seconds. Okay, hoping you all got that. And then I'm going to transition to my ending slide where there is contact information. So again, there's Pennsylvania Sea Grant's website. We also have a number of different social media accounts that you can follow, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Fairly easy to find us just by searching Pennsylvania Sea Grant on any of those platforms. Follow us. You'll get a lot more information about trainings and things that we do, activities that we're doing, and just general information on aquatic resources in Pennsylvania. And then the QR code on here is if you'd like to connect with me directly. This is my LinkedIn. Or if you're not into LinkedIn, you can just email me at sstallman@psu.edu. If you have questions after this or you want to reach out for any reason, I am available. So I want to thank you all for joining the webinar. I'm going to move us into kind of the Q&A, so please feel free to ask any questions that you might have. So I'm going to jump in now and just see if I missed anything. Okay, there are some questions in here. So somebody asked, are you able to see your own previous submissions through the app? And the answer to that is no. So once you've submitted something, it kind of flies away and leaves your phone, and it ends up in that database. So we're able to see and we have record of it, but it's not something that you're going to be able to keep track of. So if that is something you're interested in doing, you could, keep track of your own, like set up a spreadsheet or something like that. Can we access the report via the app or just on your end? That's kind of the same question there. So it's just on our end that we're able to access it. At this point, we don't have an option for anyone to get into the database or be able to see all the reports. I know there are many counties in PA, but is there an area of Pennsylvania that we need more reporting in and you're hoping this app helps? That's an interesting question. I haven't really thought about that. I think just in general, Pennsylvania as a whole, it's really important for us to be diligent and have our eyes open and, kind of show the invasion curve and why that's so important. I wouldn't necessarily say that one area is more important or we're hoping to get more reports because we want them from wherever they are. So if something's getting introduced and we can do something about it, we want to know about it, regardless of where that is in Pennsylvania. Are there any other questions? We have about 10 minutes left. So any questions or feedback? All right. Well, I will stick around a little bit longer just in case there are a few questions that come in, and actually another one. Oh, just a thank you. You're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you guys for attending, and feel free to spread the word. This is being recorded, like I said, so if you want to share with anyone that you feel might benefit from having this information and knowing how to use the app, please do share it. So again, I'm going to hang out just a few minutes in case more questions pop in, but otherwise, thank you for your time. Have a great rest of your evening, and I'm glad that the storms didn't roll through and cut off my power because I was a little bit worried about that. Take care, everyone.